aren't you? Was that just your signal call? Was that like a mating call?
That's just the sort of slight cough I have at the moment.
We should say that Phil will do his best, but you're a bit under the weather, aren't you? You have been for a long time now. It almost looks as though it could be, well, terminal would be the wrong word. But
people are hoping, yeah.
Well, I don't think they are. Great to have you with us. Of course, the biggest moment of your year happened just the other day, the Grand National Weights. Did you sleep the night before?
I did.
Did you?
I was pretty happy with them. I'd sort of been working on them for the previous sort of 10 or 12 days, and I was happy. I think they got a pretty positive press overall. One or two minor criticisms, but overall I think I was pleased with it. It looks a strong race with some really good quality horses at the top of the handicap.
If you were pleased and you slept well the night before, when Silviniaco Conti hacked up at Ascot just a few days later, did you start to lose sleep?
Not at all. I was pretty happy with that. I mean, we want.
Were you?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you want the horses that are entered in the race, certainly the top 50 or 60. You want them running, and you want them running well. The last thing you
want them chucked in, though, Phil?
Well, I don't think he's going to be chucked in as a result. He's going to be £6 well in as a result of his run the other day.
Don't you think £6 is fairly significant?
It's significant, but can he replicate over 4.5 miles at Aintree what he's done over 2.5 miles at Ascot? They're completely different tests. So I think he's still got it all to do. So
are you saying you wouldn't have risen, he wouldn't have gone up in the weights for the National even if he had won that race on the basis of what you've just said?
No, if I was
completely different tests.
No. If I was, no, he would have been higher. No,
right.
No question, he'd have been higher.
He couldn't have gone much higher, would he? Would he have been joint top weight?
He'd have been joint top weight.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got £2 from Many Clouds. All sorts of interesting contenders in here, but let's just deal with the top weight Many Clouds, because, as I said at the time, it's an annoying horse for you because effectively you like to compress the handicap, and this horse compresses the handicap for you, or stops you doing much playing with it. Is that fair?
Yeah, the only little minor change I made, I mean, the top 5, Many Clouds, Don Poli, Silviniaco Conti, Collingford, Lock, Valsalido, they were all compressed by £1. It's the smallest amount of compression that I've ever needed to do, and there didn't seem to be any point in doing any more than that. I mean, Many Clouds is top weight, he's also the favourite. Why give him any more of a chance than he's already got when the general public already think he's got the best chance?
Yes, that is Many Clouds, the top weight. But there are interesting horses. One horse that we had a bit of a chat about, and certainly, I mean, we already know from previous shows that you run absolutely terrified of Gordon Elliott, who just seems to have you by the short and curlies and outwits you every other week. Uccello Conti. Now, this horse has had the benefit of a Grand National prep under Jacques Rico, and Jacques, the old boy, has very much lost his sat-nav during this horse's Grand National prep, to the extent that he's run about 2 miles further than most of the other horses in his prep races. I mean, what's he doing here?
Well,
is he looking for better ground, or has he just lost his way?
Well, he's clearly looking for better ground, but there's plenty of other horses doing a similar sort of thing to him. He's only, there are 2 horses virtually alongside him, following the same route. Who's to say? I didn't walk the course. I wasn't there on that day. He may well have walked the course and believed that the ground was.
Where he's going now?
Maybe he believed the ground was better on the outside. He's not much further out than most of the other horses in the race, but clearly he runs a cracking race, and he's finished 2nd and 3rd in 2 really nice big Irish handicaps. So he's certainly a horse with a big chance.
Yeah, he's in about 8th place in the greenish colours at the moment. The Munir colours are Peace & Co with the white noseband. I can understand going wide on straights, but I can't understand going wide on bends.
Well, it's a little bit more difficult to. I don't think that British punters would be.
Look at him here, right-handed. Look at him.
I don't think British punters would be over-impressed with them, with the jockeys doing that on a regular basis. But he could have been under instructions. I'm not privy to that. Whatever, the horse has run 2 really nice races, and he's clearly got good chances.
We're looking at the horse on the extreme right now. As you can see, it is a very individual route. He might, of course, have had better ground, but look where he's going now. I mean, if this is for the handicapper, I mean, did it for you, Phil?
Well, he's finished placed, and we put him up for that. So,
ooh,
I don't think there's anybody's been fooled in any way, shape or form by him. But he's clearly a nice horse. He jumps overall.
Does seem to be still cruising as well.
Overall, he jumps well, and he's got a decent chance in the race, I think.
Yeah, that is certainly a fascinating. Even if it's not a fascinating Grand National contender, it's a fascinating horse in a handicap.
He is fascinating. I mean, I suspect he may well run in other handicaps as well, possibly before then. So we'll see how he gets on.
Yeah, it could be the next Diamond King. Because, of course, you had great fun with Diamond King, didn't you?
Well,
your nemesis.
No, I think
he got it right.
He actually won, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
He did.
Yeah. And then did you put him up again?
I did put him up again, yes.
Right. Yeah. That's another story. We're concentrating on the Grand National. What about Boston Bob on his own? I mean, they're old boys. It's hard to believe that they could go in, isn't it?
Well, obviously they both ran really nice races the other day.
What's he gone up, Boston? He was 155.
Boston Bob's a 151 in the National, and he's now on 155, so he's technically £4 well in. And what do we know about Boston Bob? We know he's fit, we know he's in form, and he's jumped well in the race.
Did Boston not go up for the Fairyhouse win? Surely he ran off 155 when he won.
No, he in the Grand National he's on 151.
Yeah, but he won off 155 at Fairyhouse.
He didn't win off anything because it wasn't a handicap, right? So
yeah, but he had an official rating going into that.
He absolutely had an official rating, but it was different from my figure for him for the Grand National.
Oh, because you dropped him what?
I dropped him,
right?
Because his form had been moderate.
So you had chucked him in anyway.
So I had him on 151. So when he won the other day, I put him back up £4.
But not in the National.
But not in the National, no, because the weights are frozen.
But hold on, I think you've got confused, Phil.
No, I haven't.
You didn't put him up £4 because he was 155.
No, he's running.
No, he was 151 in the National.
Yes.
But away from the National, he's 155, or at least he's 155 in Ireland.
Not in my ratings. He's 151 in my ratings, and that's why he's running off 151 in the Grand National.
Okay, well, to name a website, on the Racing Post website, it says he ran off an official rating of 155.
He didn't.
Is that wrong?
He didn't run. You only run off a rating when you actually run in a handicap. Right?
But every horse goes into a graded race with a rating.
It has a rating, but doesn't actually run off it. Right? Running off the rating means that's the rating that's been used to calculate your weight. The Bobby Joe that he ran in was not a handicap.
I may be being thick here, but you dropped him £4 for his national mark, which means that away from his national mark, he must have been 155.
He'd have been 151 if he'd entered in a Cheltenham handicap.
But then you didn't drop him £4 then?
I'm really struggling to understand your point.
Okay.
He's on 151 in the Grand National.
Yes.
That's his figure. That's what he would run off in England in any handicap before the Bobby Joe the other day.
Right.
Once he won the Bobby Joe, I put him back up £4.
But in the newspaper on the day of the Bobby Joe, he was rated 155.
I can't be responsible for what's in the newspaper. Sorry.
I think you've got confused.
I haven't. Not in any way, shape or form.
But
he's now £4 well in the
So
National.
are you saying Faheen doesn't have an official handicap mark?
He certainly has an official handicap mark in Ireland.
But you haven't given him an official handicap. So you couldn't come in here and say Faheen's a 178, but you do all the time.
He's not our horse.
But you tell me Don Cossack's the top-rated chaser in training all the time.
That's purely the performance figure that we think he's achieved this season. It's not his handicap mark. We're not. It's not our job to give Irish horses handicap marks unless they're entered in British handicaps.
But in the international classifications...
That's a whole different thing at the end of the year.
Right, but during the season...
We're not there. Through the season, it's purely on its performance figure, what it's achieved, and its best performance through the particular season that we're in.
OK. I don't think it's just Gordon that's got you today. I think I might have got you by the short and curlies as well.
Unlikely.
Another man has got you by the short and curlies. Our very own Kevin Blake has basically gone close to psychopathic with you in various places. This is what he says about Ask the Handicapper. He says, you said at the Grand National Weights launch that this was by some considerable difference the highest quality entry ever for the Grand National. Could this be anything to do with the fact that the numbers of horses rated 140 plus has gone through the roof in the last decade? Why has this happened, especially, of course, when there are less horses in training? The basic accusation in layman's terms for those who are already slightly confused, Phil, is that effectively these horses are only the highest rated because you have upped the ratings of horses to make them look better than they are.
Well, first of all, let's talk about handicap ratings per se. Handicap ratings are only important in terms of the relativity of horse A to horse B. So if a horse is rated 142, another one is 148, it's the relativity, there's a £6 differential between the two of them, and that's the important point, whether they're 142 to 148 or 172 to 178. Have the ratings over a period of time gone up slightly? They definitely have. And the reason for that is that if you think during the recession that there were far more people disinclined to own horses rated 75, 80, 90. They were the horses that by and large owners decided not to carry on with. And as a result of that, we stopped running 0 to 85s in Britain. We stopped running 0 to 90s. We stopped running 0 to 95s. The lowest rating now that you get is a 0 to 100. And as a result of that, that's inevitably going to cause some degree of a rise in the ratings. And that's happened pretty much over the last 2 or 3 years to a great extent. However, it's not relevant in the sense that horse A and horse B, it's the relativity of them in terms of a handicap. It doesn't matter whether they're 142, 148, 122, 128. As long as there's a £6 differential between them, that's the difference they'll carry in handicaps.
But it is relevant. It is relevant if you...
Let me finish my point.
Well, I will in a minute.
No, let me finish the point.
Okay, you can finish.
At the top level, there's still not a great deal of difference. Because if you look at the top level, at the best horses over a period of time, in 1999-2000, the first year of the Anglo-Irish, Istabraq was rated 176. Last year we rated Faheen 174. If we had massive increases all the time, why is Faheen not rated 5, 10, 15, 20 pound higher than Istabraq? In 1999-2000, Limestone Lad was rated 171. And in 2014-15, Jockey was 169. So again, the Jockey is £2 lower than the best horse was 14 or 15 years ago. Looks Like Trouble was rated 174 in 1999-2000 and Don Cossack was 175. Now in that intervening time we've had loads of horses considerably higher. Denman's been on 182, Corto Star's been up in 190, Long Run's been 182. But if you look at the level of the best horses last year, the Coney-Grees of this world, 172, you know, that's perfectly in the norm with what the top horses have been over years and years and years.
Couldn't it be that there are so many average graded races now that you've almost been forced to increase these ratings to get horses into them?
Well, you're never forced to put horses up to get them into races.
Well, maybe you're doing it unintentionally.
That'll just happen automatically. I mean, if horse A runs against horse B and it runs well, then it's clearly there's a chance that it's going to go up. But at the same time, we're also dropping horses. I mean, people talk a lot. I've spoken a lot about 10, 11, 12-year-olds. But you only need to read the very good article by James Pyman a few weeks ago in the Racing Post, which showed that the success rate of 11-year-olds is perfectly acceptable nowadays. Well, we must be doing something with 11-year-olds to get them competitive with all these horses that have got highly inflated ratings.
Are you surprised, though, that there are so many more when there are less horses in training?
Well, am I surprised? I suppose I'm not massively surprised. Last year there were 133 French breds who were included in the Anglo-Irish jumps classification. That's hurdle and chase. So 133 of them. Now I'm guessing, but 10 years ago there'd be more like 33. So, and not a day goes by without an agent or a trainer emails me asking for a French rating. Now they're not asking me for French ratings rated 75, 77, 79. They're all asking me for ratings rated 135, 140, 145. People want higher quality horses. So there's absolutely no question there are higher quality French breds coming now, and they also the other very
there are less French breds.
There are more high quality French breds coming to Europe now, or so Britain and Ireland, than ever. And you only need to look at Rich Ritchie and the French breds that he's now got. I mean, 10 years ago he wasn't, you know, on the horizon, and Mullins hardly had any French breds. You look at his stable now, full of really high quality French breds, bought at the end of their 3-year-old career, possibly bought at the end of their 4-year-old career. So our agents and our trainers, both Britain and Ireland, have taken a lot of the really high quality, potentially good quality French breds, and British and Irish racing has been the beneficiary of it.
Yeah, the graphic on screen showing the origin of horses rated 140 plus, the difference between 2006, 7 and 14 and 15, and particularly from France, you notice 31.8 goes to 25% in 14, 15. You surprised, Phil?
Sorry,
Are you surprised by any of these statistics at all?
I'm not surprised by any of the statistics, because they're only the statistics that we've got ourselves.
The basic thing, though, Phil, is you've got a problem, haven't you? Because you would stand up every year at the Grand National. You cannot stand up and say, this year's race is £10 inferior to every other one, because I've raised them so much.
It's certainly not inferior.
No, but you can't. You could never do that.
Let's just look at last year's...
It's always got to be better.
Let's just look at last year's winner, Many Clouds, and compare it with the very first Grand National that I did, which was won by Bobby Joe. Right? Bobby Joe won from a stone out of the handicap. Right? Mm-hmm. That's just not going to happen nowadays. I don't think anybody's going to try and say that Bobby Joe is anywhere near as good a quality horse as Many Clouds. I don't think that Bobby Joe is any near as good a quality as Hedge Hunter, as Neptune Collonge. And all of the winners that we've had in the last 10 years, they're significantly better horses than Bobby Joe was back in 1999. You know, horses now would not get a run in the National from a stone out of the handicap, and they certainly wouldn't be winning.
So do you really honestly believe the quality is better now?
I know the quality is better now.
Okay. You don't believe that there's a slippage upwards?
Well, uppage, I suppose you'd call it.
Uppage.
Sluppage. Is there an increase in terms of the median height? Yes, there's no question that's true. I agree that. But it doesn't cater for anything like the quality of the horses that we've got in the Grand National this year.
So final question on this, would Fahine and Don Cossack have the same rating 10 years ago as they have now?
Yes. And you only need to look at that to see it. I mean, Fahine, we rated Fahine 174 at the end of last season. We rated Isterbrack 176. If there'd been, you know, monumental uppage, why would we not have Fahine on 185, 190, which we haven't done? You know, you only look at the previous year's top horse, Jockey 169, Isterbrack 176, Hardy Eustace 170, Binocular 173. So if you look at that top level, those ratings are perfectly in sync with the sort of quality of animals that we've had in the past.
Yeah, I think... Kevin might think you've wiggled your way around the...
No, I've answered the question really well.
Well, he might not think that. He might think you've wiggled like a little worm around. Right, what we're going to do is take as many questions as we can after this break. We've got loads of good ones for you, Phil. That was one of the easier questions. We've got some tough ones for you after this.
William Hill sponsors coverage on At the Races.
I've been asked many times what my #1 interview was. Tough question. But for over 50s life cover, the nation's #1 choice is clear. The guaranteed over 50 plan from Sun Life. We'd all like to leave something for our loved ones to help with funeral costs or as a cash gift. And with the nation's #1, you can do just that. If you're aged between 50 and 85, you're guaranteed to be accepted without any health questions.
And cover starts from under £4 a month.
You can't get this kind of cover for less. After you've had the plan for 2 years, a cash sum is paid when you're gone. Call this number today. The first month's premium is free. You get a free pen just for inquiring. And a welcome gift when you join. Why not put your family first with the #1 choice? Call free on 800 50 55 50 or visit sunlife.co.uk.
With no chemicals or scrubbing, the Karcher Steam Cleaner kills 99.99% of bacteria, using nothing but tap water and the deep cleaning power of steam. The Karcher Steam Cleaner. Discover our 5-star customer reviews online.
As I walk down the street, seems everyone I meet gives me a friendly hello. I guess I'm just
Saga, award-winning cruises, exceptional value for money.
If you've suffered an accident, make your voice heard. Call the National Accident Helpline on 0800 556 557 or go to underdog.co.uk.
You're Sam, right?
Yes.
Winston Wolfe. Don't get up. So you're a landlord now, a property magnate.
It's just my wife's old flat.
But you've taken out direct line landlord insurance, right? After all, they guarantee they won't be beaten on price.
I didn't know that.
Prize plum.
Sorry?
It goes well with Magnolia.
Landlords, we pay for boiler repairs or replacement as standard with buildings cover.
At Luma, we say yes to someone every 6 minutes. So for a response in 60 seconds, go to luma.co.uk today.
An attack has decimated the British capital.
Get down!
Oh my God.
London has fallen.
William Hill sponsors coverage on At the Races.
The place for all the news on jump racing's finest in the run-up to Cheltenham is here on At the Races.
For he's the leader, travelling like a dream.
Milk Racer is striding on now.
Decent curve, you back this one, form an orderly queue.
Coulthard will come home to win it for Warren Greatrex.
We'll have a special preview programme on Sunday the 13th of March, starting at 6 o'clock, featuring interviews, analysis and top-class action. And throughout the week, we'll bring you all the festival news, views and reaction, starting at 9 a.m. on Tuesday.
The final bench, and he pins it on the skull.
Big night coming up here on At the Races. It is our Cheltenham preview night coming up on Sunday the 13th of March. Do not miss it from 6 p.m. Right, you stand in your box and you go up in the handicap. Mark Ball, who owns plenty of horses in his racing syndicates, he says, hi man, when a horse wins it gets a raise, but connections get the chance to run under a penalty should they wish. When Ray's standing in your box, the raise is a surprise. Connections do not get a chance to react, Philip. Could these types of raise be deferred to allow connections a chance? And he gives the example of the Alan King 4-year-old Gibril Farrow, who's gone up £9 for doing nothing, Philip. Answer, please.
Okay, well, first of all, it's not a surprise, because if the owners and trainers have been monitoring the form of their horse, which presumably they would do, because they're mad keen on how the horse is doing, then they'd notice that the form had worked out well. So it's highly unlikely to be a surprise if the form has worked out well. But equally, we drop horses when the form doesn't work out. We did some statistics about 4 years ago now, is the last time we did it, and we discovered that for every one horse that went up for standing in its box, 3 were dropped. So trainers and owners are actually net beneficiaries. Form is much more likely not to work out than to work out. And to take the Gibril Farrow as an instant example, I mean, he's a horse that's run twice, right? So he's actually not qualified for a handicap anyway, so it's irrelevant. So all we're doing with him is saying this is the horse's level. Obviously, there's a fair chance he's going to run in something like the Triumph, and people will be able to see from looking at our ratings in Race Card how we now assess that horse. Now, if we would just completely ignore the fact that Connectable, the horse that finished second to it, had come out and subsequently won, then we would be derelict in our duty, surely.
I'm not totally convinced by the argument that just because one is put up, it's all right because we're putting others down. Because this scenario will always affect the horse that's in good form more than the horses that are in bad form, who in fact may not win a race by going down 2 or 3. They might need to go down 10 to 15. Whereas the horse who's in form, you're trying to plot, you're trying to organise, you're trying to keep that winning run going. I'm not sure, Phil Smith, that you can continue to use the argument that, oh, it's all right to keep putting them up because we put a few others down.
Well, first of all, we're talking about horses there that have actually already won. We will sometimes drop horses when the form hasn't worked out, even though that winner has not subsequently run. So here's that horse. It was in form, it was winning. We've put it up by, say, £7 or £8. The second, third and fourth subsequently come out and get beaten. We have then more information. I mean, after a horse race, we've only got a finite amount of information. Yeah. Right? And surely, as more information comes onto our knowledge, then surely we should be readjusting our ratings. Every other form organisation would do exactly the same. Racing Post ratings would do that. Time form ratings would do that. So we're saying that the BHA ratings shouldn't do that because we should be have our hands half tied behind our back, so that when we find out more information, we shouldn't be able to take that into consideration. That's just not handicapping.
Andy Halliday's not happy with the way you've treated Houblon des Aubers. We talked about this at the Grand National lunch. Gone up a ridiculous amount, according to Andy. What was it, £15 you shoved him up? Something like that?
No, he went up 14.
Well, that's fairly close to 15.
Yeah, but it's not 15. He was on 162.
You're in one of those moods, aren't you? This bronchitis has got to you.
He was on 162, and he lost his way over the last year. I mean, he was running really well. He was second at Ascot, you may remember, in November, December in 2014. He was performing really, really well. And then for whatever reason, he lost the plot. And over 4 runs, I dropped him £16. He then runs at Newbury, and he obviously runs well. He's back to form. Now, the first thing you look at is, why would that horse, what's the reasons why that horse might possibly have come back to form? Well, he wore headgear in that particular race. So there's good reason to think that perhaps he might have been benefited from the headgear. So then you think, well, I'm going to put him back now to somewhere near where he was. So I look back and I put him back to slightly below the mark he was when he was running really well at Ascot. So that happens to horses all the time. They lose the plot. Maybe they've got a niggly injury of some sort. Maybe they're just not quite as enthusiastic as they have been. We can't have it both ways. We can't be dropping horses £16 per 4 runs and then say, let's leave him on 146. He's won that race. He's won £25,000 in that race, but we won't actually change his rating. Let's see what happens when he runs in a handicap.
That was a 7-runner race, yeah?
Absolutely.
3 of them pulled up.
Yeah.
The Giant Bolster has won 1 race in 4 years.
Yep.
Splash of Ginge is clearly a shadow and had the visors on as Connections desperately tried to get something out of him.
Yep.
And Rocky Creek has absolutely lost the plot.
OK, so should we have left him completely?
Well, obviously not, but you didn't need to put him up 14, did you?
So what would have been reasonable then?
I would say 6 to 8.
And that's just like an educated guess, isn't it, really?
Well, yes.
Exactly. I look back at...
Educated.
Yeah, and there's the difference. I look back at what was he doing when he was in form a year or so before that, and I put him back to that sort of level. Because how do I know? Now he's got cheek pieces on. He could be better than that mark.
If he's tailed off next time, would you drop him 16?
Well, of course you would. Well, you wouldn't be putting. No, you wouldn't be. I won't be dropping him £16. Absolutely no chance. But would I be dropping him if he can't be competitive in a handicap next year? Of course, because that's my job. My job is to get horses competitive in handicaps. That horse on his run at Ascot in the previous winter is certainly competitive off his current mark of 160 because he's already shown me he can be, and now he's got cheek pieces on. Who's to say how well he's going to run?
Tom Essex on Twitter says, watching Ask the Handicapper is like poking your tongue into the hole of a recently extracted tooth. Despite the pain, you just can't not do it. And there's a very good analogy there. I like that, Tom. You should sit in this chair. It's like having the tooth. Right, Pat Cooney from Bet365 clearly isn't happy with your handicap weights. Says, why not wait until after Cheltenham before releasing the Grand National weights? Then you wouldn't be caught out by all these horses.
Well, first of all, I don't feel caught out.
Well, you clearly are, haven't you? You've just already said that Silviniaco Conti would be top weight. You've been caught out?
That doesn't mean that I
Boston Bob?
feel caught out.
£4 well in?
These are just things that you take on the chin. This is all part of anti-post betting.
If you want to get them all to finish in a straight line, Phil, you don't want to be caught out.
And early closing handicaps. That's the nature of the beast. I think we get fantastic publicity. We closed the Grand National 2 months before the race. The amount of publicity that you get, the amount of interest that you get is absolutely massive. Why suddenly wait for another month? I can't see any value in that at all. As long as the sponsors are happy, which they are, as long as Aintree are happy, which they are, as long as the general public are happy, which I think they are, the bookmakers are clearly happy, where's the problem? I can't see any advantage in delaying it.
Having a look at Uber's Obo's rating there on screen, it's amazing how close he and Sausalito Sunrise are with real Gold Cup horses like Don Poli. He's only £3 higher than Sausalito Sunrise now.
Who Sausalito?
Don Poli. Well, 166. Sausalito the sausage 163.
We have not got to the bottom of Don Poli. There's no question.
Well, no one has.
No, because he's a very lazy type horse. I'm sure he's going to be better the further he goes. Let's see what happens in over 3¼ miles at Cheltenham. Let's see what happens over 4½ miles at Aintree. I'd be no surprise to me to see Don Poli in the 170s at the end of the season.
Yeah, this isn't including the latest, is it? Because Silviniaco is still on 159 there. What's he on to now?
He's on 15. He's on Silviniaco Conti now is on 169.
Right. Okay. Yeah. He's bang right up there.
So
with Smad Place. Let's you're going to have to whir your computer up. Algernon Pazam. Algernon Pazam.
Yeah.
+7, according to Mark Tomskin, for a second in a Class 2 handicap. Manello Rocco not raised for a second in a Grade 2. Says, where's the consistency?
Okay, so this was at Bangor in November. Well, just because it's got a title of a Grade 2 is completely irrelevant. It's the quality of the form. And there's a subtle difference between Algernon Pazam's race at Bangor and who was the other one? Manello Rocco?
Yes.
And Manello Rocco's race the other day. One's a handicap and one isn't. So the first thing that you have in a handicap is that everything is there because you hope it's got an equal chance. Right? In a non-handicap, the weights are done in terms of a penalty structure, but they may not bear any resemblance whatsoever to handicap ratings. So Algernon Pazam is beaten a neck in a handicap off a mark of 135. Perfectly reasonable to put him up by £6 or £7. He's a neck off winning the race. The average amount that winners go up is £8. So to have a neck second going up 7 is perfectly reasonable. To go back to Manello Rocco, right? The horse that beat him was rated 145 and he beat him at level weights by I think 3/4 of a length. I called it 2. I had them one going in on the race on 143, one going in on 145. They've run to their ratings. Why change a rating when a horse hasn't actually appeared to exceed it in any way, shape or form? So I've got no problem having Manello Rocco on 143, and I think it's Vita du Roc is 145. He was the winner of the race. Absolutely not a problem having him on 145. That was what he was going into the race. I haven't moved him up at all because he's not done anything that I didn't think he could do. Did I think he could beat Manello Rocco, who was £2 inferior horse to him? Yes. Did it happen? Yes, it did. Why change things when what's happened is actually what you expected to happen?
I'm still not quite having. I can see it's a good sort of way for you to squeeze yourself out of a situation, but I'm still not having this situation that you don't give horses ratings that aren't rated in handicaps. I mean, we know that Dovan won at Cheltenham last year off 155 and he won off Punchestown off 160. That's what he was rated.
He didn't.
But that was his rating going into the race.
You only win off a rating when you run in a handicap. That may have been your rating.
But you will tell us after this year's Cheltenham Festival what rating the champion hurdler is given.
Correct, but I will never say he's won off 160 or he's won off 166.
But you wouldn't give him a rating he hasn't won off.
I'm never going to say that. You know, that is not what we say. We never use the word he's won off 170 if he's won a champion hurdle.
But you will say
we've never done it and we never will.
We're giving him a rating of 170 for winning the champion hurdle.
That's a whole different issue. Winning off a mark is when you run in a handicap off that mark. Winning to running to a mark is a whole different issue.
But to run in a handicap, let's just say, let's take the Hennessy as an example.
Okay.
If Conagry ran in the Hennessy,
yes,
it would run in the Hennessy off the mark that you gave the horse after it had won the Gold Cup.
Correct. But that's running in a handicap.
My point's proven.
Off that mark. But if Conagry doesn't ever run in a handicap again,
this is playing
never run off
semantics, Philip. You're trying to...
No, you're using a word that's incorrect, sorry.
Take a deep breath. Breathe out. Breathe in. Right, we'll do one more before the break if I can just get through this. Right Judge Lamb has said, Smad Place Valsalido gone up a few pounds. Will the King George be reassessed?
No, it won't be. I think the third horse, the third horse is Alpha Off. I don't think he's run again subsequently. Nope. And those horses, yes, you're quite right, they have run well subsequently, but they were beaten too far to have any relevance to the result of the King George. So I'm happy with the result of the King George. I'm happy with him on 176. We've been talking earlier about horses getting inflated ratings. Far be it from me for inflating Vautour and Q Card any higher than they've already been put to. I'm happy with them on 176 relative to other horses, what they've achieved in the past. Let's see what they do when they go to Cheltenham.
I'm happy to accept you've got bronchitis, but I do feel that you are just today, you're just stirring the pot a bit, and it's being noted out there in Twitterland as well. Jack Milner says, just because it was a grade 2, it's completely irrelevant. I'm sure Phil's just trying to wind Chapman up now. I mean, you are, aren't you? You're playing the absolute devil's advocate.
The title of a race is not relevant to the quality of the form. If every time was a grade 1, we suddenly said, well, because it's a grade 1, we've got to have the winner on 173, we'd lose complete credibility. You assess horses through other horses, not the fact that it's a class 1, a class 2, a class 3. It's completely, utterly irrelevant. And to go back to the original point about Algernon Pazam, there's a subtle difference. Algernon Pazam ran in a class 2 handicap. Horses have gone into that race with hopefully an equal chance. He's shown himself better than that. The horses on Saturday have not shown themselves better than that.
Well, I'm not convinced, but Louise thinks you're getting the best of it at the moment. She says you've got no hope, chat, with that, Phil Smith. You're looking a little hot and flustered. Not hot or flustered. Just cannot believe that Phil doesn't understand how you rate horses in graded races. We'll be back after this.
William Hill sponsors coverage on At the Races.
Everyone's got an Experian credit score, but if you don't look after it, then it can't look after you. We've helped over 7 million people nurture their score, and we can show you how to improve and nurture yours. To help you get a better rate on loans, credit cards, or even a mortgage. Sign up today at Experian.co.uk. Experian, make it count.
Shaka Khan, let me rock it, Shaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Shaka Khan, let me rock it, Shaka Khan. Let me rock it, let me feel it.
When the whole house is online, you need Vivid 200.
The future belongs to the fast, and to help you accelerate, we've created a new company. One totally focused on what's next for your business. A true partnership where people, technology, and ideas push everyone forward. Accelerating innovation. Accelerating transformation. Accelerating next. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
Here in Canada, we need a wide range of electrical products and services. like innovative lighting from the UK. The demand is out here. You could be too.
If something is a big deal, we think you should know it's a big deal. People everywhere are missing out on tens of millions of pounds of rewards and cashback every year. Some of that can be yours. Switch to Barclays and you can sign up online to Blue Rewards. Never has something so huge been so simple. To apply for Blue Rewards, all you have to do is...
We just thought you should know.
You've come a long way. Now you're ready to take on the world. Sure, you're outnumbered, outgunned, but you're the man. You're her man. You're a Zen master in the art of parent whispering, savior of the soft furnishings. You come, you see, you conquer. Word to your mother-in-law. When it matters big time, Virgin Trains, be bound for glory. William Hill sponsors coverage on At the Races.
As always, loads of correspondence on Twitter, etc. If you've got a question for Phil, and we've got loads of them stacked up, so we'll do what we can, / Ask the Handicapper. Right, let's get straight into Annie Power. Is she good enough to win what is now going to be an incredibly substandard champion hurdle? Phil, is Annie Power good enough on her current rating to win?
Well, the first problem with her is she going to be as good over 2 miles in champion hurdle conditions as she has been over, basically 2.5 miles. So that's an imponderable that nobody can answer. She's got one good thing going for her, that she's going to get a £7 sex allowance, which is obviously very, very helpful. But the interesting question is, the champion hurdle, I suspect now, is going to be run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And
why? There's no front runners in it.
The champion hurdle will be run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Everything now believes it's got a chance of winning that race. They'll go off at fantastic pace. That's what happens most years anyway. Even when there's 5 or 6 runners, there'll be significantly more than 5 or 6 runners this year now. And let's see if she can cope.
But
can she win? She can win.
Well, what's her current?
Do I think she'll win? I'm not so sure.
So again, and I hate to say this again, but when she ran at Punchestown going into the race, she had a rating of 162. So has she been dropped £5 or has she been put up £2? Because that 162 doesn't take into a mare's allowance.
No, that's just her pure rating, right? And she didn't need to or didn't have to perform to that level.
So she's actually gone down.
No, she's not gone down.
Right.
She just didn't need to perform to that level. And that's often the case again, to go back to the difference between handicaps and non-handicaps, that's often the case in non-handicaps. The best horse in the race very often doesn't have to perform to its level to win the race. It happens all the time. Going back to Frankel, there were countless occasions where Frankel didn't perform he was rated 140. Certainly in his last run in the Champion Stakes, he didn't need to run to that level to win that race. And that's the case with quality horses over and over and over again. They have a rating, that's the best they've achieved, but they very often don't run to it, but they still win the race.
I'm not going to bang on this much more because I'm beginning to bore myself over it. Good. But can I just get this clear in my head? If she hadn't run at Punchestown last time, she would have gone into a handicap if she'd been entered for a handicap of a mark of 162, yeah?
If that's her Irish rating, yeah.
It was her rating when she ran at Punchestown.
Okay.
If she was to go into a handicap now, she would go into a handicap of a mark of 157, is that correct? So why is it 157 on the list?
Because that's the quality of her performance in that race.
Right, so it's not her rating.
Absolutely.
That's the rating for that race.
That's purely what we believe she's achieved. And those lists that you had up earlier, they're what we think those horses have achieved.
Okay, well that explains my thing. So what, if she was entered in a handicap, what rating would she be given right now?
162.
Right. So we're back as I thought, 162. So not 157, but she's run to 157.
That's what we believe she's achieved in that race.
I don't understand why you think it's so unlikely she can achieve such a good rating at 2 mile. I mean, it was 2 mile 2 at Punchestown. She made all. She destroyed the field. I mean, 2 mile 2 isn't that much further than 2 miles.
I think she's going to be asked a considerably different test than anything she's been asked so far.
Who on ratings will win the champion hurdle, just purely on their rating?
Well, probably if you have the £7 fillies allowance and she can replicate it over 2 miles, then her rating plus the sex allowance is almost certainly the highest rating.
Do you believe yourself that horses like the new one, Might Enter Yours, can come back and win a champion hurdle?
I'm not sure he can win it, but I'm sure he'll run really well.
Which one? The new one, yeah.
I'm sure he'll run really well, but whether he can win it, I wouldn't know. We're reactors, not predictors.
And as the handicapper is concerned, is the race ruined?
No, it's not ruined. It's going to be a fantastically exciting race. Yes, of course, it would be wonderful to have seen Faheen running the race. We all want to see how good he is. I mean, we were talking earlier about his rating apropos Isterbrach, and last year we had him a couple of pounds lower than Isterbrach. I want to see what this horse can actually really achieve. Let's see if we've got the best 2 mile hurdler that we've had in the last 15, 20 years. So it's frustrating from that point of view, but will it make it a more exciting race? Possibly it will.
Do you think the £7 is fair?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Because I thought you were going to change the...
Well, I mean, it's at least
mares
fair.
Wait for age announcements,
at least fair.
Well, you think mares should get more than £7?
Possibly, yeah.
And your evidence for that is?
By and large, their rating is at least £10 lower than geldings.
Right. So if Annie Power was to win this, and we've had mares, obviously Flaky Dove, Dawn Run recently, if she was to win the champion hurdle, would she go down as one of the great mares for you, even though it's a substandard field?
Well, I think she's already going down as a great mare because of what she's already achieved. So I don't think that she has to do anything special this year. She's already shown herself to be a really high quality mare. So,
how far behind her is Vroom Vroom Mag at the moment?
Vroom Vroom Mag.
She's miles better than her rating.
I haven't got Vroom Vroom Mag on my.
You haven't even bothered to rate her?
On my radar, but she's clearly better.
She'll win the mare's hurdle if she runs in it, Phil. I should have a look at her if you've got time sometime. Paddy Timmons says, how the hell, he's almost blasphemed, he's that upset. How the hell could Irving be rated the same as the new one, or even higher than Identity Thief? It's an absolute joke. Paddy says your handicapping system's a joke.
Well, he's entitled to his opinion.
But he's right, isn't he? Irving's rating is ridiculous.
Well, in what sense is it ridiculous? Just
because he couldn't possibly run to a mark of 160.
Well, just because he hasn't performed to that level in his most recent.
So why aren't you dropping him?
Because
he's not suddenly going to bounce back, is he? He's just not as good as you want him to be.
Okay. On the 7th of November, he won a handicap at Wincanton off 154, and we had him performing to 160.
Yeah.
Right. So we know he can win a handicap off 154. Right. Now, since then, what's happened to him? He's run a decent race at Haydock when he won, but again, we didn't have him performing to 100. Well, let me finish my point.
But Philly beat Melodic Rendezvous and Zarib.
Let me finish my point.
You've been chasing.
He's won a race, right? We didn't have him performing to 160, but we're not going to drop him for winning, right? And since then, he's run 2 stinkers. Now, should we be dropping a horse when
Of course you could, because on your system you drop them when they run badly, don't you?
But hang
Give
on,
them a chance.
But this horse has already shown this season in November at Wincanton that he can win off 154.
But you and I both know Irving cannot win a handicap of a mark of 160. He couldn't. It would be physically. Paul Nicholls, if he was watching this show now, he would be absolutely laughing at you, thinking he can win a handicap of 160.
Well, he's won one off 154, so he's not done too badly, has he?
Would you back Irving in a handicap mark of 160?
I'm not allowed to back Matt, so it's irrelevant.
But if you were, hypothetically, we know you're not allowed to, but if you were.
It would depend on the opposition.
Well, would you back Irving against the new one in a match off their current handicap marks?
Would I back the...
What's the new one rated?
His performance figure so far this year is 160.
So they're the same. Match, level weights, who would you back?
Okay, so there's the question. That's, again, what they've achieved so far this season. So we've already said that Irving, subsequently to that, has not performed. So 160 is probably the maximum that he can be. Do we think the 160 is the maximum the new one can be? I don't think we would, because he's clearly been higher in the past. But that's what they've achieved so far this year. You're getting completely confused with performance figures, what they've done so far this season, and handicap marks. They're very different things.
My question, though, however confused you may feel I am, is a relatively simple one with a relatively simple answer. In a match race off level weights tomorrow, would you back Irving or the new one?
I wouldn't back either, because I don't back.
In a match race tomorrow off level weights, would you expect the new one or the Irving to beat each other?
I think the new one is more likely to win.
So you agree he's well handicapped against Irving?
Well handicapped?
Well, if you expect him to beat her,
I don't,
you must
think, I don't think Nigel Twiston-Davis believes the new one's the most well handicapped.
I think he
horse
does compared to Irving.
Nigel,
if you're watching, tell us how well handicapped you think the new one is against Irving. Level weights tomorrow. Right, Phil, you've let yourself down a bit there, but we'll move on because we could get bogged down here because you know I'm right.
But you're getting confused between performance figures and handicap ratings.
Ryan says, does Phil give reduced marks to horse running at, and I use this term purely from the point of view it's on the tweet because it's not an at the races opinion. He says, to poor horses running at poor tracks like Catterick as opposed, say, to Cheltenham. I know what he's saying, inferior class tracks. If a horse is a 150 horse running at Catterick, is it also a 150 horse running at Cheltenham? Would you say?
If its rating is 150, it'll run off that mark whether there's a handicap at Catterick or a handicap.
But if you run
at Cheltenham.
poorly at Catterick, would you be dropped quicker than if you ran poorly at Cheltenham?
No, because it's all all handicap marks. I go back to it's the relativity of horse A to horse B. And where the horses run is completely irrelevant. You know, for all we know, you could get a really high-quality race at Catterick where they've attracted half a dozen really nice horses. Why should we say, well, we're not going to just suddenly say, well, we're not going to do anything with those horses because it's only Catterick. That's just nonsense. It's the quality of the horse, not the quality of the track.
Davey Mack on Twitter just saying, did Phil Smith once work for the police force? No, but you were a school teacher, which is along the same sort of lines.
I don't understand that point.
You would if you were sat in his chair. Loads more questions, lots of them detailed ones about horses. And we'll get onto those straight. We've got to take another quick breather, but I can't wait to get onto them. We'll get onto them after this, Phil.
William Hill sponsors coverage on At the Races.
You're Sam, right?
Yes.
Winston Wolfe. Don't get up. So you're a landlord now, a property magnate.
It's just my wife's old flat.
But you've taken out direct line landlord insurance, right? After all, they guarantee they won't be beaten on price.
I didn't know that.
Prize plum.
Sorry?
It goes well with Magnolia.
Landlords, we pay for boiler repairs or replacement as standard with buildings cover.
The biggest ever BT sale is now on, and we've cut more prices than ever before. Get 40% off super-fast fibre optic BT Infinity and unlimited UK weekend calls for £7.50 a month. Plus, you can add our fantastic TV service, including 20 must-see channels you won't find on Freeview for £2.50 a month. That's a big 50% off. And it's just a 12-month contract. Make the most of the biggest ever BT sale. Join today, call 0800 102 800 or visit bt.com/sale to find out more.
As I walk down the street, seems everyone I meet gives me a friendly hello. I guess I'm just
Saga, award-winning cruises, exceptional value for money.
If you've suffered an accident, make your voice heard. Call the National Accident Helpline on 0800 556 557 or go to underdog.co.uk.
Have you heard about Vanquis, the credit card that's accepted over 3 million people? It could help you build your credit rating, which is very useful. It's very handy because it could increase your credit limit, up to as much as £3,500 over time, which is very helpful. To start building your credit rating, apply for a Vanquis credit card today at vanquis.co.uk.
Itchy, flaky scalp? T-Gel Anti-Dandruff Shampoo helps eliminate dandruff starting after just one use. T-Gel Anti-Dandruff Shampoo from Neutrogena.
William Hill sponsors coverage on At the Races.
Welcome back to Ask the Handicapper. Phil and I were just saying, we can't believe how quickly the time's gone. We've got 15 minutes for loads of you enjoying the show. As always, Nathan says, loving watching Ask the Handicapper. Taz says, great viewing. It's like watching a father and son argue. Yes, behave, son. And Dara says, settle down, Chapman. You try and do the handicapper job for a while. Well, it's not my job to settle down on this show. My job is to try and grill some sense into the man on my left. As indeed one or two of you are agreeing, of course. One or two comments. I mean, JD, Irving on 160 just has to be questionable, doesn't it? Question mark. Let's just get on. Fascinating. Just one or two questions. There was a race yesterday. Scudamore lost his irons. And this question came through on Twitter, which I think is worth. Lindsay says, could the second conceivably be raised more than the winner, given the circumstance of the Taunton race yesterday? Second rider without irons, half a race. Phil, as you can see, Scoo on the rail loses his irons. It's a relatively narrow win for the Twiston horse in the end on the outside. Could you arguably rate the runner-up higher than the winner, or raise him more than the winner for the riding? Or would you say, actually, Scudamore's given the horse every chance, it's made no difference?
Well, I think it would be difficult to say that it hadn't made any difference. I'm sure it's made some difference. Otherwise, you know, jockeys would ride like that all the time, which they clearly wouldn't do. If I was handicapping that race, I'd probably treat them as dead heaters.
You'd sit on the fence with the old dead heat. Champagne Charlie's have been on. In Phil's opinion, when a 4-year-old hurdler's better running in open handicaps against elders, they've got one rated 129. When's it better taking on the elders?
Not
good question.
Not for a couple of months yet. I'd be looking end of March, beginning of April.
Okay. Is that because the age allowance is diminishing?
Yeah, I think it's they've been running in by and large uncompetitive races by the very nature of juvenile racing. And I think it's when you see them running in competitive handicaps, it's a whole different issue. You saw a good example a week or 10 days ago with a very inexperienced horse called Blazer that came over from Ireland.
Yeah, useless.
Strongly fancied. I'd run a less competitive handicap in Ireland, but incredibly convincingly. You put him in the Betfair hurdle at Newbury, and it's a complete culture shock to a young horse.
But equally, we know you tremble with these Irish horses, and the likes of Elliott and Mullins have you absolutely quaking. And Mike says, last year, Irish horses filled 10 of the 16 places in Cheltenham handicap hurdles. They're just too leniently treated.
Well, it's an interesting question, that, because I've probably been doing this programme with you 5 or 6 times now, and each time we'll get a question saying the Irish horses are hard done by, then the next time there'll be the Irish horses are leniently treated. And we get this over and over and over again. We keep statistics on Irish horses at the Cheltenham and Aintree festivals, and their success rate is about 0.3% higher than the UK horses. So I have to say that's utter nonsense.
But although it's against the rules of British and Irish racing, I presume, although I don't absolutely know what the rules are in Ireland, but against British racing to fool the handicapper, do you think, honestly, that the Irish are better at fooling you than the British?
I don't think any of the trainers are brilliant at fooling the handicappers. You've got to remember, we watch every race over and over and over again. You know, I've got a team of handicappers, and they're professional race watchers. Most of them have been doing it either in this job or in previous jobs for years and years and years. So, in terms of fooling us, we just give the horse what we consider to be a fair rating. Which of these horses did they think were thrown in, of these Irish horses? you know, I've got no problem with the Irish horses. Their success rate is perfectly acceptable. It's not a problem. And also, you've got to remember, it's all very well so-called stopping a horse from showing its best. If you do that, you won't get a run at Cheltenham or Aintree.
I'll come on to that in a minute, actually. I suggest, incidentally, if you are watching all these races, you have a look at Irving's 2 last runs again. Ben Cottrell, do you think Smad Place gave his true running in the King George?
Clearly not, because, you know, his 2 best runs were obviously the Hennessy and the race at Cheltenham. For whatever reason, he didn't perform anything like as well at Campton. It was quite an interesting one, just because I remember talking to the trainer about, you know, should they run in the King George. The Hennessy takes a hell of a lot out of horses. It was only 3 or 4 weeks subsequent to that. I was never confident that he'd be able to replicate his Hennessy run at Campton, but he's shown himself now to be a 169, absolutely rock solid. The interesting question for people who support Smad Place is, can front runners win the Gold Cup? I've got my doubts.
Cool Dawn, I think, if I remember rightly, was the last front-running Gold Cup winner, Cool Dawn, under Andrew Thornton. What happens if a horse like Splash of Gins wins at Cheltenham, raised £10, but doesn't then qualify for the National? That's a flaw. There's got to be penalties, haven't there? Surely.
Well, the first thing that will happen to him if he wins at the Cheltenham Festival, that means he'll go to the top of his group of horses, of his batch of horses. Right. So that's no bad thing. I think Splash of Ginger is on 141 at the minute. So he'll just go to the top of the 141s. Well, that's a huge benefit. I think there's about 10 horses on the same weight as Splash of Ginge. So to be zoomed to the top of them because you've got subsequently put a good run in, that's a huge advantage. So it's not necessarily the case that he won't get a run in the National if he goes and wins at Cheltenham. He'll be in a good position, I think, there.
There is I think there is anyway, hold on. He's put a horse called What a Night. I'm not sure, I've just looked it up, I couldn't find it. How did What a Night earn an £11 rise for finishing second? Can you find What a Night? I couldn't actually find I haven't got I might be spelling this right. Yeah, What a Night with a K. That will help. Okay. What a Night. Yes, here we go.
3 separate words? 3 separate words?
No, all one word, trained by Harry Fry.
Okay.
It finished second at Doncaster off 129. It's gone up to, I think, 141.
Okay, What a Night.
Oh,
he was second off 129.
Yes, as I said.
And his current rating is 140, so he's gone up 11.
For finishing second, Philip?
Finishing second.
I mean, how harsh is that? For these guys who are paying £25,000 a year to keep it in training.
They were 16 lengths clear of the third.
Well, we know that.
And there was a nose between the winner and the second.
Yeah. Of course, Conagry led all the way in the Gold Cup, Phil.
Pretty much, mostly, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not tricky at all.
Well, we'll see.
If your horse is good enough,
so
you can win
to go back to What a Night, yes, he's gone up £11 for being beaten a nose at Doncaster in a 19-runner race, a really competitive race. They've come 16 lengths clear of the third. He's incredibly lightly raced, What a Night, as well. That's what the handicapper decided, and we'll see what happens when the form works out or doesn't work out. Because of course, if the winner, the third, and the fourth, and the fifth all come out and run disappointingly, he'll get dropped for standing in his box.
Right. Although Irving hasn't. Dan Heap, loads of comments here. Says some very big marks for Novices winning very ordinary maiden races. Do you rate the maidens and the Novices too high, Phil?
Well, if we do, how do they happen to win so many handicaps when they go into handicaps? So, Novices have got a fantastic record running in open handicaps against the older horses. So, if we had them too high, they'd never win those races, and their success rate is good.
What do you think of the modern day trait of jockeys easing up after they've taken a peek at the on-course big screen, says Matt Gray?
It's their decision, and we'll make our own decisions as a result.
Do you treat horses that are eased down harsher than if they were ridden out?
Not harsher, we just make a judgment call. which is obviously our job.
Okay. You should though, really, shouldn't you? Because effectively they're trying to cheat you.
They're not trying to cheat us.
Well, they are.
If a horse is 15 lengths clear, there's no need for the jockey to ride it out to the line. That's their decision.
I think under the rules of racing, you have to ride your horse out to the line.
You don't. You have to achieve the best possible placing, and if they're already going to win, then as long as they keep the thing going and they pass the post first, it's really not a problem. But then it's our job to make a judgment call as to how much we think the horse had in hand.
Lewis Racing, do you treat horses that win on their comeback harsher?
No.
Sure?
No.
Yeah. Will Hoffman, the Hoff, as he likes to be known, I suspect, asked Phil how much he takes sectional and final times into account when allocating a mark.
Well, the great problem with sectional times is they're so inconsistent in Britain. I think they're much more of use on the flat than they are jumping. It's been great in Champion Series races to have sectional times. I've used them a lot to explain things that I thought were inexplicable. So I do find them really helpful. They're hardly ever used jumping nowadays.
Diamond King, a lot of comments about that. Final Flight says Diamond King bolts up at punchtime. Looks like Phil had him right. And Paul says, great show. Will you be asking Phil about Diamond King again? What have you got Diamond King on now?
Right, that's a good question. Diamond King. Where are we looking at in Diamond King? What's he now on to? He's now on 149.
Are you still scared of him?
I wasn't scared of him at the time when you said I was scared of him.
Well, but he won very easily off the mark you gave him.
No, he won in Ireland, not off a mark I gave him.
Right. But the mark you gave him was 130 something, yeah? And he's now rated 140 something, suggesting that the 130 wasn't correct.
We've got him now on 149, and we're more than happy with that. But he hasn't run in England since the 14th of February 2015 at Ascot when he bled.
Paddy says Mark Prescott's been getting away with it for years. Handicappers just don't have a clue what to do with his horses. Are you scared of Mark Prescott?
No.
You are, aren't you? The last thing you want is these Prescott handicappers winning 10 in a row or something. It's your worst nightmare.
We're not scared of anybody.
Well, they are. Of course you are.
We're not scared of anyone.
Of course you are, because every race, all the horses should finish in a line. And there's Prescott just laughing at you. Laughing at you as he gets a horse to win 5 on the trot with distances back to the second and third. And he's just looking at you and saying, I am better than this than you are.
Well, in fairness, if he's got a horse that doesn't run from November of its 2-year-old career till August of its 3-year-old career, there's a fair chance it will have made improvement. And that's just the way training racehorses.
He'd be your nemesis, wouldn't it?
That's
your
just
worst
the way
nightmare.
training of racehorses is. The chances are it's going to have some improvement, but that would be no different. There's plenty of other trainers who improve horses.
Wasn't there a time quite recently that you were going to try and stop Prescott from doing what he's doing by changing the penalty system so that he couldn't play the system?
We have changed the penalty structure over the years.
So you don't need to change it if you know he's getting the better of you.
We now have a cumulative penalty structure, which we didn't have 15 years ago.
Because he played the system better than you could play.
Well, to try and make it fair for everyone.
Well, no, to stop him.
No, to try and make it fair for everyone.
No, because he was better at it than everyone else.
To try and make it fair for everyone.
You didn't like the fact that one person was better than the rest of them.
We thought it was a good idea to try and make it as fair for everyone as possible.
Right, Mike again talking about the Irish. Says first 4 from the 6 in the Martin Pipe, first 6 in the County Hurdle were Irish.
Yeah.
Got to be well in, haven't they? Surely there should be a UK horse somewhere in the mix. Well, if they're well treated.
But there are other races that you can say, well, where are all the Irish horses in that? Where were the Irish horses in last year's Grand National?
Darren French says, would a horse who prefers a left-handed track, then performs poorly going right-handed, get dropped purely on the chance that it just didn't like going right-handed?
Well, if we know for certain a horse has got a preference for going in one particular way around, we'll put it on our system and it'll be up to the individual handicapper to make that judgment call themselves. But you'd certainly be cautious. if you were confident that it had to go left-handed and it was going right-handed.
It says Intrepid says Diamond King, according to our Racing Post, is 144, not 149. But I'd imagine that would be a Racing Post rating,
correct,
rather than your rating, yeah.
Correct. Our rating, I go back to our ratings are not in the Racing Post for Irish horses, but they're on our system.
Yeah. Don't know if you saw on the telly the other day. We had a shot of Nicky Henderson as Different Gravy was winning. And he looked like a man who'd been stricken down by your bronchitis as the horse strode further and further clear. You've never seen a man look so depressed in victory. Is that because he knew you would clobber him?
Well, do you think we've clobbered him?
I have no idea, so you'd have to tell me.
He was won by 16 lengths. How much do you think we should have put him up?
I would say you put him up between 8 and 10.
We've put him up 11.
You've clobbered him.
With 149 to 160.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
This horse has won 3 on the bounce.
Yeah.
You know, he's shown he's a decent horse. If you win a competitive race like that, you've got to expect some sort of a rise, haven't you? He's going to be on 160 now if they enter him if he runs in the Handicapper at the festival.
But again, aren't we getting back to the Kevin Blake here? No one thinks that Different Gravy's a 160 horse, do they?
I definitely do think I think he may be.
But in your inflated ratings, but in the great realms,
I think Different Gravy is
Different Gravy.
Certainly at least a 160 horse, and he would not be disgraced in the World Hurdle.
We're just about at the end of the show, which is a great shame because I've just seen Ryan Gettin's tweet. Now it's up to you, Phil. We can either end the show on time, or you can answer this. JP McManus handicap marks. Discuss.
Which one?
Next time, I think, Phil, probably best to keep us out of court. But enough said. Look, we know, because we established this last time in our conversation with Phil, when it comes to JP McManus, and indeed many others over there in Ireland, he is simply scared. We should just point out before we go, BHA, new initiative coming on board. Just tell us about this very quickly, Phil, because this is important. Because slightly it's like on the line, but essentially, if someone has a question about handicap, not about a horse, not like whether you're rated £7 too much, but whether you think 4-year-olds are badly treated, that kind of stuff, or northern horses are badly treated, what can people do now?
Yep, they can go onto our website and we've got this section called Handicapping Explained, and they can ask us general handicapping questions, philosophical handicapping questions. You're quite right, we don't want why is this horse 157 or not 156, but general philosophical questions, anybody, and we'll do our best to give the answers as long as the questions are sensible.
And a bit like this show, the idea here with the BHA is to raise any preconceptions or concerns anyone might have about the handicapping practices in general. Unfortunately, of course, therefore, the Irving question won't be allowed to come up. They say they'll do best to answer all sensible queries in a certain amount of time, but they also say please be patient, because obviously if you send in a question now to handicapping@britishhorseracing.com, Phil will not answer it in 5 minutes time. But if you've got any general queries about handicapping, the old chestnut, like, you know, are northern horses worse handicapped than southern horses, or better handicapped than southern horses, that kind of thing, 4-year-olds badly handicapped, anything you can think of other than quite simply is Irving badly treated off a mark of 160, BHA would like to get involved, and I would like to feel that it's part to do with the success of this show that's come on board. It allows people to know more about what you are doing. Thanks as ever, you are the chief. You are a good man. Your best bet at Cheltenham is? Don't say you're not allowed to bet. You know what I'm saying. Just be nice to our viewers for once.
I haven't given
the horse you're most looking forward to seeing?
Don Cossack.
Don Cossack? Oh, come on, you know the most exciting horse is Dovan. Right, on that bombshell, we'll go for another break.